Okay.
Okay. Did it tell you she's recording?
Yes, I'm hitting got it.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, so for your 360, so good. You completed the form, the survey,
Yeah.
without any hitches. That's great. Next week during our session, you and I actually are gonna do, I'm gonna be reviewing just your view of your self-evaluation.
Okay.
Um, because typically what we use that session for really is to interview you.
Okay.
And then later, of course, in the next session, then I'm going to be presenting you the feedback you get. But I think since you filled out the document, we'll kind of take the original 360 that you got, this survey, and you and I will just kind of walk through your take on it. So we can
Yeah.
make some preemptive notes before it's colored by other people's input.
Okay.
So that's what
Okay.
you can expect next week. So yeah, I know so I've got the original list of the raters from your last professional one, and you've emailed them. So I'm going to follow up with them, let them know that we're going to shift gears a little bit.
Okay.
Let's do, instead of doing an interview, we'd like them to fill out this form if they want to have a conversation to clarify anything or get further information or just touch base. I'm going to offer that. And then you're going to send me a list of additional folks that are outside of your professional world so that we can get more of a holistic approach. Because I think sometimes when we do these inside the organization, we don't go to family and friends, but I think it
Right.
gives you a full coloring, because one of the things you want to know is, how do I show up differently?
Yeah.
And do I show up differently, and should I show up
Yeah.
differently? So yeah, if you'll send me, I know you're working on that. So if you'll send some communication to those folks to let them know, we've already talked about what that could look like. And then once you get, confirmation they're good, just send me a list of names, their emails, and maybe who they are
Okay.
to you. And it could just be, you can specify if they're a specific, category. That's great.
Okay.
Family or friend for sure, but let me know, maybe if you
Coworker or not.
context to, like,
Yeah.
I worked with this person, or,
Okay.
yeah. And then, so yes, and then next week you and I'll go over your self-evaluation and the previous, anything from the previous 360, but just basically it'll be me interviewing you for the purpose of 360. And then the following week we'll get to actually go over the feedback. And so I was thinking about that.
So
Um,
both feedbacks would be together. Like feedback
oh,
from the people that did the 360
yeah,
and from the additional.
yeah. Well, yeah.
Okay.
And that one probably needs to be a little bit longer. And so
Okay.
I might need to ask you for more time. So
Okay. We'll
yeah.
look at that.
Hey, Amanda,
Hey,
how are you?
did you see that voice? Like, I could not, I was over with the formula text, kept trying to log on my phone and it
Oh,
would not do it to save
Oh,
my life.
technology.
I don't
I'm
know.
so
I've never had that happen before on that though.
sorry. Maybe
Usually it wouldn't let me log on either way, so I don't even know.
well, I'm glad
Should
you're
I
here.
called in again today?
oh,
She's on the way to the ED to get an
oh,
x-ray of her back.
Sharnette is
Oh,
going down there to help cover stuff.
I mean, is it helping today? I'm gonna see if Rachel can do the weekend because I don't know who's doing what.
Yeah, yeah.
Yep.
always
Uh,
fires.
there's always something.
I know. Well, man, it's good to see you again.
You too.
And thanks for making a few minutes for me today. I'll keep it as brief as possible because I know you guys
Yeah.
have a lot in flight. Always. And just a reminder, Amanda, I am going to record this, but it's just for my professor. So
Okay, that's fine.
it's to judge me, not you.
That's okay.
Hey, and her professor is out of the state, so it's not even like they can judge our our hospital or
That's
our
right.
anything.
They won't even know
Yeah.
you. Well, Amanda, really, I got a chance to talk to Michelle while you were on vacation. Congratulations on getting away. I hope it was awesome. Did you go somewhere fun?
She was with
No.
family.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, family can be a mixed bag. So,
Yeah.
so yeah, I got a chance to talk to Michelle last week to kind of go over kind of what to expect, but I wanted to give you the opportunity to hear a little bit of the same so
Okay.
that you know what's going on, can express any concerns or ask any questions. And of course, I just value any input you have in the process too.
Yeah.
So I'll start by sharing just a little bit about me and my credentials and style of coaching. So my background is I've had about 20 years in mentorship as part of my job. And then coaching in the last several years in HR for probably a decade. And then for the last 11 years, I've worked in an organization here in Memphis, a biotech company, as an executive leader. So,
Okay.
and as part of my current role, I coach a lot of our folks internally, but an internal coach is very different from an external coach, because there's times, even though I have a great trusted relationship with somebody in here, it can feel a little uneasy to share it all.
Yeah.
So that's one of the things that coaching really offers, though, is a safe space for people to do good work and grow and develop themselves. Specifically, I think there's probably multiple coaching styles, one of which is more of a, hey, I would think of it more as consultation. Hey, I have some wisdom. Let me give it to you as a coach and grow you. My style is less that, and a little bit more of, I believe, for example, in this instance, Michelle has everything inside of her to make good decisions and make change in her life and really own it. My job is really just to partner with her to pull that out and help her. And in between sessions, I kind of give her some homework that's kind of those inputs of maybe wisdom or expertise and tools that I've gained from other folks over the years. And that's that piece. But I told her this, and certainly you and HR or anybody else, that's supported this for you. If you want it to look a certain way, or if you want it to be integrated in any way with team or department, we can do whatever. So I just want you to know that's an option. So yeah, confidentiality. I have these kinds of kickoffs with the three of us because I don't want there to be things that are not, that are hidden. I want it to be in full view. But I really trust that Michelle is going to do the communication with you rather than you and I talking, because that'll feel bad for her. And I want to give her a safe space to process and grow. But she should be giving you regular updates or talking to you about it as you guys are interested in that and what she's learning or growing in. And specifically for you and I, Amanda, I would love, once Michelle and I get to the place where we create what we call kind of a development plan,
right?
Love for you to take a look at that and kind of make sure you're aligned to it, that you think it makes sense. And then at the end of our coaching, which I think we are in week really 2 of what will be 13 weeks of coaching, I would love to do a check-in with you to see if how you felt like it's gone for her, if you've seen any improvement, that kind of thing, really against the development plan too. And again, I think Michelle, you should be checking with Amanda to see along the way too. That'd be healthy. At least that's my thoughts. So, and then just sessions, it'll be an hour for each session, Amanda, that I'll meet with her. And if things are crazy at work, she knows that we can meet offline. I know everything's crazy at work, but it doesn't have to be during working hours. It can be after. So I'll make myself available to what meets her needs. And then, but mostly what will happen during a session is we'll come in and it's client centered. So we'll have a development plan that we're working towards, but Michelle will really get to guide, what do we need to work on then? And also, just as you guys have just demonstrated, sometimes there's what I kind of call 911s. Like there's things that rise to the top. And so maybe we need to derail and kind of talk about that and work through it, because that's real. And we can do real applicable work there. So we'll kind of do that, and we'll define each session. What does success look like at the end of that session? And then she'll have a little bit of homework, nothing too intensive.
I already have been doing.
You signed up for this.
I know.
Yes, she's a glutton for punishment. But
next I know how to ask certain questions first. I'm just kidding.
That's right. So we'll close with homework, and I'll make sure to take notes during her sessions, and so that she'll get to have those. And again, it's always goal oriented. It's based on wanting to really optimize her performance at work. So first of all, any questions about any of that?
Nope.
Okay.
I mean, I did tell her a little bit about how Karen, when we had asked Karen, is this something we could be a part of? How Karen asked me, Karen fought. Oh, this yesterday. I was like, did you see the email from Karen? And she's like, what are you talking about? Because
I'm like, looking at my emails. I was like, I don't know what you're talking about.
And I was like,
that's an unfortunate coincidence that we have an HR and a coach called Karen. Yes. Okay.
Yeah. So Karen HR, how she asked me specifically if this would be more of a, remember how she said something about teaching and leadership versus a coaching and asking questions, but not necessarily imparting the tools.
Yeah.
And so that I feel like it was helpful the way Karen explained it this time, and she's explained it to me before. I'm like, I don't know. I didn't know how to answer the question because I didn't know like which way we're doing it. And
Right.
like and I know we take our coaching classes through Methodist, which do you know who does that? Like
I'm
what?
not sure who's doing it right now.
But like I don't know
Danielle.
what program they follow, right? It's like a Methodist growing.
Oh, yeah, I do not know. Like
Okay.
what I don't remember what the basis or what the concepts were based out of.
Yeah. So I told her like we take those classes, and I mean you have to ask a lot of questions and not give any, and it's tricky, but I'm like, I don't think I want that. Like I need you to, I want the answers, I want the tools. I don't want, but like slowly I'm like,
you want to be managed and not coached.
That's the easy way
Yeah,
out. That's right.
give me the answers.
I told her, I said, I hope what you'll find is that if I ask the right questions, you already have the answers. So I don't need to give you tools. You
she's just trying to pull out those answers.
Yep.
Yeah. And I just want to copy the answer.
Yeah. I believe you have them. So we're going to pull them out.
She does. She has the answers.
She does.
She may not always like the answer. And sometimes like she's like, oh, this is gonna be some work. And I feel
Yeah.
I was like, but I've also learned there are many things that are worth it in the end.
That's right. I totally agree. It's sometimes the hard way. Sometimes the hard way is the best way, but it's not fun.
Oh, it's not easy. No.
So I think that's kind of the overview of coaching. I think, Amanda, I really wanted to give you the opportunity to provide me with any context that you feel like would be helpful. I'm kind of thinking of a funnel. Is there anything going on organizationally or just culture, mission, values, norms, and then even in your department and teams, but then also like that you see in Michelle that are strengths or opportunities for development and for her role specifically that you kind of want to marry up to that vision or, organization or team that would be helpful to focus on during this time.
Yeah. I think, especially with the dietitians, we're between a rock and a hard place right now. Because financially the system is not doing well since COVID. And so what we had planned for budget and things like that, everything's having to be pared back. Like an example, I was talking to Michelle in respiratory yesterday, and she said they're staffing a respiratory therapist over at the ED, the pediatric ED part of Le Bonheur, Germantown, the one at Germantown.
Yeah.
So when they started looking at it, and staffed 24/7, when they started looking at it, it's only 1 to 2 respiratory treatments a shift, a 12-hour shift. And it does not make business sense. It makes more business sense to train the respiratory therapists that are there and fully staffed, and bring the other respiratory therapists back here. But everybody's not happy because it was a cushy job at Germantown if you wanted to be the respiratory therapist there. So they don't want to leave because they do have to do a whole lot more work here at the hospital.
Yeah.
The doctors want them and sent a pretty nasty email, actually, pretty petty, throwing people under the bus, about why they needed to have a respiratory therapist, even though there are things not under their control with corporate and budget and things like that. I was like, by no means does that make sense. Like, costs so much more to keep that respiratory therapist there for 1 to 2 treatments a shift. And so, and then the adult respiratory therapists at Germantown don't want to do it and don't want to learn something new, but they're giving them an incentive and like kind of like a career step pay or whatever to learn some of the pediatric. And these are basic asthma protocols. That's really what they're doing over at Germantown ED. To learn that, and they get a little extra kind of, not bonus pay, but some kind of like a little bit extra, a differential. Yes, that's a better word. So that would, that's not our department, but that, I think that would almost be like a good example of some things are going on the system, having to make some hard decisions financially. And there's like, this is not good patient care. I'm like, you're talking about 1 to 2 asthma treatments a shift. So, but in the dietitian realm, where it's really hurting us is that Methodist doesn't have the money. And I'm like, but I also feel like we're at the point now where it doesn't matter anymore because we can't lose any more people. And like Allison Bray, when the adult director had a good example. She tried to hire somebody that wanted to work in their cancer institute that was coming from Baptist that didn't want to work 40 hours a week. Allison's job, she could do 32 hours a week and be more flexible, coming and going. And that worked much better for her home life. But she was taking like, she was going down an hour. So yes, that was a pay cut, but that's her choice. But it still was like a 16% pay cut. From what she was making at Baptist coming here. And so it's like now we're the lowest paid in the city and we can't remain competitive. And we're losing, everybody's tired of being short staffed for 3.5 years. Which most of my other pediatric directors around the country were kind of all in the same boat. But we've got more people getting sick and they're sicker than they used to be in the hospital. And the birth rate had gone down. And so they're not graduating as many people in dietetics. So then there's not as many people in the work pool. And we're also not able to pull cream of the crop like we used to be able to.
Yeah. So it used to be that we only hired after you had a minimum years of experience as a dietitian because you needed that foundation before you could get into pediatrics. And then we're also specialized as whatever subspecialty in pediatrics. And now to get entry level is hard because they can get entry level positions other places making more money. Or if they're like, I really like peds, I'm putting my passion before pay, I want to go there, then we're only keeping them long enough to give them like a good foundation and then they're gone somewhere else. And so we just have really green people that don't even have the experience that we would typically require. And then we're putting all of our blood, sweat, and tears into training them to lose them to other places. And so culturally, that's really tough for our department. And also from a safety standpoint, like doesn't feel good to be like, oh, I need you to go cover this. You don't really have the training. I mean, you have more training than the nurse does, but it gets tricky. And then they feel that burden because we have very high achievers in our department. They feel the burden of like, I'm not trained and you're asking me to do this over and over. And then that's another reason to want to be like, I'm done, so.
Yeah.
Man, that is so hard. It sounds like, and my guess is those constricting factors of finances probably aren't going away anytime soon. Is that right? Probably not.
I can't see it because like we've got so many open positions and everything.
Yeah. So it sounds like
like when I think it really hit home for me, like when we lost Lindsay, like one of the most loyal people ever. She's just, of course, she also kept saying yes and kept doing extra and kept extending herself. No matter how many times did we talk about that? Like
I make her read boundaries and act like
yes.
Your best yes, Lindsay. When you say yes to something, you will be saying no to something else. You might not see it right now, but she just tricky.
Yeah.
I know.
Yeah. So there's the financial piece, of course, like you said, and then just the training piece that increases for you guys, and the bandwidth issue. And then look, even I'm sure we're in a similar boat, not maybe as extreme, but in terms of our own business. And so I think a lot of times people want to push for what operational efficiencies and if can we create, which is important because maybe we can find some breathing room, but it's hard to get all the way there. So I think it's a difficult spot to be in. So they
actually approved us 2 contract dietitians. Corporate did. And that's another thing. They're like, why are we paying the dietitians? Are like, why are we paying all this money for corporate? Because like we are drowning and we need somebody now to get some relief so we don't run everybody else off. But that doesn't mean you can't take the money we're using for a contract person and then fan it out to everybody and give everybody more money. We can't do it that way either.
Yeah.
Or even
Yeah.
like the open positions. Like we've had 6 open positions for over a year, right? So it's like they want, like, where's that money? Can we not, like, we're doing those jobs, quote unquote, like, can we have some of that? And that's not even in our, even if Amanda and I were like, yes, we can't even do that. Like, that's not,
Mhm.
we weren't given that.
That's a really creative.
It's
yeah.
not in our circle of control or influence.
Right.
Wow. That is I would imagine that's very frustrating.
Yes.
Yeah.
And tricky to speak to, because you're like, I hear you, I understand, I want to continue to fight for this, but then we hear from like big Methodist all these things, and so it's like, where does that put us? You know, like, we're hearing it and feeling it from our people, we're hearing it and feeling it from people above, but then, like, how do you lead and guide in that sandwich?
Yeah. So Amanda, tell me how what would be helpful then to, as I'm working with Michelle in that context, what would be helpful to in that scenario? Is there anything that you feel like we could work on to improve that?
I think all of us could use it, but maybe just translating that message from corporate sometimes, like with the financial aspect and how that is, then this is where it is like affecting us. Sometimes I feel as if it's said, but it's not what's wanted to be heard. And so it's not always processed correctly by the frontline staff. So maybe different ways of saying it or different ways of translating the messages and things like that. I think it's been, I don't know about you, Michelle, I really appreciate them inviting all the managers and stuff to like AOC so y'all can hear it too. And I'm like, the financial piece, I mean, they just need to broadcast the whole thing to, you know, like everybody every month after AOC. I don't know, but and maybe some different ways. I know we've talked about like getting Kevin or Karen to come talk and things like that. We just keep running into, it's like putting out fires because different things happen and we don't even have time to meet, like yesterday.
Yeah, it's so hard. What are there, let me ask this question before we go further into Michelle specifically. Are there any bright spots? Is there anything that's going well that's working in your area that you can really like, whew, at least this is going well?
Okay, this is not, well, one thing I was like, we got a really great hire for the lactation consultants. I think we've gotten some good hires with the dietitians. We've also had several challenges, and like I really think Lizzie's doing a really great job. She has to pass her RD exam. But she's not needing a whole lot of hand holding and stuff like that. Emily's doing a great job. I think she needs to believe she can fly more than she thinks she can. And she'll be okay.
Yeah. Amanda and I have talked about this over the past year too. Like the people we have lost, 75% of them are people that we were okay losing.
Yes.
25% are ones that were hard to lose.
Yeah.
And then
and some of those were from, they moved out of state with spouse and significant others' jobs and things like that. So
no control there.
Yeah.
And then the current department really functions well as a team, the dietitians. And historically, like, there's always been little cliques and groups, and it really is not that way anymore. So I would say that's like a big bright spot. You can walk in and you know they all have each other's back and they all really do work well together. And it hasn't always been that way. So that's, and I think you agree, right? I mean, that's that's a bright spot.
And I just want to keep that going. I think it's hard, like when everybody's cross covering everything and they just feel pulled in so many different directions, especially the new ones. But they do a good job of pulling together and getting things done at the end of the day. And I may not always know the reason, but I can usually, if there's things left over in the day, I usually can go in and figure out what the reason is. Oh, this kid has depart orders. They're about to go home. They didn't do it because why waste the time when the kid's going home?
Yeah.
Those kind of things. So,
Those are some really good bright spots. I mean, to have good people is really half the battle, especially when you're struggling to hire the way that you guys have outlined and attract talent. So that is a real win. And then I think and then good teamwork. And I think both of those are a testimony to both of your leadership. I mean, I think being able to find good people and then retain them and create an environment where they can thrive. I mean, well done. So those are bright spots for sure. That's encouraging.
Yes. We should write it on our mirror.
Yeah. Yeah. When you're in hard moments a lot, you need some encouragement, and you need to internalize that encouragement because it's another hard day tomorrow. Right. Yeah. But those are some real wins. And when you can focus on those bright spots, I think you can kind of stay afloat, but it is, and how to leverage those, how to take the good things that are working and leverage those further. Because that's something you do have control over. And there's a lot, like you've talked about, Amanda, that's outside of that circle. So that's meaningful. And I heard you say, Amanda, too, and I'll kind of noted that, just how to best communicate in a transparent way with clarity so that people don't feel that you're misleading them. And you're in a hard place because you can advocate, but if you can't actually bring action back, they can lack trust or start to lose trust. And so just being able to communicate in a way that doesn't disparage the organization and leadership, but also it encourages and keeps them. So I hear that, and that's something we can definitely talk about, Michelle. So that's good.
Yeah. So both of those I think are great. That one. And then also, like, I know an area that would be very helpful for me is, like, I'm thankful and remind myself of those bright spots, but because it's not something that we're working to improve, because it already is amazing, I don't do a great job at, like, talking about that a lot, because I'm like, we don't have time to be over here in my mind, right? In my, like, what needs action. We don't have time to, like, spend on that. And then let's say, okay, now I can see the importance of spending time on that, right? Like, it's important to look at your bright spots to be able to move forward and all these things that need action. But what all do you want me to say about something that I know we all have? That's just not my strength. Like, talking in the sappy, like, oh, we're all so great, kumbaya. And I feel like they all also look around like, all right, why are we here? We got stuff to do.
Yeah.
So, you know.
And that's hard too, because they've actually mentioned recently that they felt like messages coming from, like, Methodist corporate is all these great things. And they're like, okay, yeah, fine, whatever. But you're not working on the stuff that needs to be worked on.
Yeah, they said if we get one more thank you email from big Methodist, I'm going to throw my computer. Yeah. And it's like, how much can you say? Thank you for cross covering. Thank you for doing this. Oh, you're so excited. It's like, that's not what they don't want the verbal, like, empty. We get it.
Yeah. They, people aren't dumb, and they're not fools, and they really do want real information. Meaningful appreciation is important. And that meaningful appreciation probably isn't going to come from Big Method. It's going to come from the two of you.
Okay. So that's where I need the answer.
I think I keep thinking about, like, a kind of like a grateful journal or whatever, like writing 3 things down every day you're grateful for, and, like, really sitting in that gratefulness and really being grateful. It's not stupid sounding.
Like yourself or for staff.
Right. And to say, just like in Huddle or something. I was thinking about this earlier, actually, like in Huddle today, and it's like, you know what, you guys, I'm really grateful for the teamwork and y'all having each other's backs. That means a lot to me.
I think that's a great idea, Amanda. And and I think the key in a moment like that is leading, and by example, keeping it short but also specific, because I think that's what makes it meaningful when you can. And so even being able to give people, like, a few minutes and say, I'm gonna time us for 3 minutes, but 3 minutes for appreciation, and being able to, like, have people kind of, what's something you can comment on, and just encouraging it. I think that would go a long way, and especially from you guys, because they're looking to appease you and feel like they're doing what you need them to do, and people need that. So I think that's a beautiful idea. Yeah. So I think there's plenty of those things, Amanda, as you're thinking about those troubles and things, and as you're talking to Michelle, I mean, I'm always available too if you want to talk, Amanda, and process something, but also just to be able to say to Michelle, hey, talk to Karen about this and see. I mean, I'm happy to. So I just want to be a sounding board to help you guys, stabilize. And that's the other thing I was going to say is it's so hard to lead. Michelle, you were articulating this. It's so hard to lead when all you have time to do is manage. And I think manage is the thing is creating stability, putting out fires, doing the task oriented things. And what you were kind of explaining is like, but it's so hard to then have the inspire and lead and change because who has
Energy.
time for it?
Yeah, you literally feel like you have the water hose turned on all the time. Like
Yes. Yeah. And good leadership leads to the need for management. Good management leads for leadership. There's a cycle there. So both are important, but it's difficult for when you guys are wanting to lead and all you can do is manage. So I hear that for sure. Good. Okay. Let me ask Amanda, what else specifically for Michelle? I know she's here and so it can feel awkward, but you know how she is. She likes feedback and she wants to grow and learn. So what are some
she wants me to tell her like it is. Don't pull any punches.
That's right. That's right. So if you were to share with me, what do you feel like are maybe the top couple things that Michelle's so strong in, and then a couple things that you want to see her grow even better in?
She's definitely a doer. Check it off the list.
Yeah.
She's really good at making succinct, get it done kind of lists and things like that. I think it's been a little bit more challenging working from home. I think, not being there and like grabbing that person or that little bit of feedback you just needed for about 30 seconds or so. And that's just the nature of the beast. But I still think she's doing a good job of like making her lists and checking things off always. And getting communication out, reminding people about communication, meetings, different things like that to put it in the staff's, put it out in front of them and make sure that they're reviewing this every once in a while. That's all has been timely and things like that. So I appreciate that about her. What else? I think she's really good about like coaching conversations a lot of times, like when she's doing her one-on-ones, and kind of trying to get to lead them, like you were saying earlier, to ask the correct questions to get them to some of the answers. And to like put some things into perspective, like, okay, like there's these exterior factors and things like that might be influencing things, and kind of get them to think about it in a different way. Because I think all of us, can tend to be in our own little world and not think about the other things that are going around the world.
Yes, for sure.
I think Michelle's good about putting those into perspective with her associates. Okay. And then what could she do better?
Yeah. Opportunities for growth and development. Yeah. What are those?
I think we've talked about this a little bit, like just make sure, like in some of the conversations when trying to move a conversation along, not cutting people off too. Because you got to get that checklist done. But sometimes like, you're like, okay, I'm seeing a lot of like resistance, not bad resistance, but like, I'm not ready to go there yet.
Yeah.
For sometimes some of the associates, and I still think like Michelle does a good job of trying to move them, but there's some occasions where I need to step back for a second. And I feel like she's, that has improved in the last several months or so. But I think that's still that doer aspect is still probably going to be a challenge every once in a while when I'm just going to get this stuff done. And it's not that we do. It's just sometimes if you don't back up a little bit, it's going to bite you in the butt later.
Yeah. Isn't that the truth? Our strengths oftentimes are the same things that have a kind of a dark side, or our weaknesses too. Being a good doer sometimes we can push harder on others to do
Mhm.
more efficiently and, and in a way that is very task oriented and for the people in it too. Michelle, you've talked about that yourself. So
Yes.
doesn't
And
surprise
we're a little bit opposite, sort of, in that way, which I feel like is why, like,
It
I
works.
love that team
Mhm.
because my weaknesses are her strengths, and like my strength, some of my strengths are some of like, like we've just that yin
Yeah.
and yang.
Yeah, like I could do better at saying, you want to talk about that a lot longer? Go next door. Amanda will listen all day.
I love it. I love
And
it.
then we get back to my list.
I love it.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I did tell Karen that I want to have better language for like how do I balance that and what do I need to say to like recap to make sure people are feeling heard and be able to move on,
Yeah.
but not be so like I just can't breathe right now.
Yeah. And that's probably, I think, probably one of the hardest things I've learned in leadership, to be honest. That's the hardest, one of the hardest things.
Mm-hmm.
No matter what your personality is, it's not easy.
Yeah.
And it like sucks your energy, and it's like, oh, where am I getting the rest of that energy from?
Yes. Yes. Yeah.
So,
You have too many things coming at you to slow down sometimes, right? I mean, but you
mhm.
want to do it well. It's meaningful. Yeah, I hear you.
Yep. So,
any other ones, Amanda, that would be good growth opportunities? And maybe even thinking this perspective, if we were to fast forward to the end of the 13 weeks and you and I are talking, Amanda, and I asked you, hey, do you feel like this engagement was successful? What would success look like for you as her manager, leader, supervisor?
I think like sometimes, and these are just impressions, I'm not saying reality necessarily, but like it can kind of, just a couple of comments like, oh, like Michelle may be in doer mode or whatever. And I want to make sure like some of the staff, like, I really wanted to have a little bit more feedback about that, but we went ahead and went with it. And that is a fine line because our staff could talk about it till kingdom comes.
Mm-hmm.
And I am not kidding. And they're still not ready. So like, you've got to push them. But sometimes I think like making sure maybe timelines and things like that of like feedback and things like that. And it's not something we haven't done before. But rarely do they come like email us sometimes. Sometimes they do.
Yeah.
But it's like, it's hard with the time and things like that to be able to go to them. And maybe it's not, I don't know how that looks and which techniques work better than others, but just that they feel like they had that opportunity for input sometimes. But that's something Michelle and I have been struggling with.
Yeah, that's helpful. Yeah, that's a good.
Because they have got to move forward, which is what they wanted and what they wanted in a manager, and they got it.
Yeah. So maybe success for Michelle would be figuring out the balance of making sure that staff feel like they have a voice, and feel like they have an opportunity to have that voice and the space and the time, but also having them understand the time pressures and helping them Michelle basically training them to be concise but also heard. So kind of that balance.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
And I think like the group we've got that Michelle was describing earlier, the group we've got is probably more receptive to that than the groups in the past.
Yeah.
And I think we've got like a golden opportunity. And part of me like, oh man, like I wish I had time to do that portion of leadership versus I've got to go to the formula room this afternoon because somebody called in.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, even that this morning, it's like starting at 6:30, Renee's calling in, can't be in clinic this afternoon, and then it's figuring out who can be in there. It's like, so all that, like you start your day, you can't even start in the mode of, hey, I really want to work on the way I'm gonna get feedback for these things, but I realize this is more pressing, and how do I want, it's like all of a sudden I feel like we keep on ending up on things that are like decisions have to be made because there hasn't been time to pre-think about it to get all the feedback. So now the holiday thing, like we need to be planning for the holidays, but we haven't even gotten to start planning for the holidays because we have a bunch of interns coming through. We have 4 new hires onboarding. And so now we're going to get to the holidays, having not had the opportunity even like flesh out some of that to get feedback potentially because things just keep happening.
Yeah.
So because what I was thinking about as y'all were talking through that is like same thing with having a toddler. There's things that you can ask feedback on and you can appreciate it. And there's things that need to be fast decisions. Just like there's things you can say yes, there's things you can say no. And so being more aware of what can I get feedback on and allowing that feedback time. But then hopefully that would gain their trust so that when something needs to be decided, I'm not having to say, well, can't make a decision because I need 5 hours of it's like, I just need to make this decision. I need you to trust me. But
well, and I think the other thing is like, it's okay too, as long as it's a decision that they wanted to be made.
It's okay with them as long as, yes, if they're like, oh, I wasn't ready for that, or I didn't want that decision.
But
And
because
they don't
this
have all
or
the
that and the whole picture, like they're not always like trying to explain the whole picture, but like sometimes there's no way to explain the entire picture. And like be succinct about that so they still understand. But it would take us 20 hours to describe it if we really did.
Right.
Yeah. And that's where like they don't have the trust of us, but then I feel I don't know what the word is, but like a little defeated in you don't appreciate my role because I have all the pieces. And so it's very much like this isn't how I wanted it to work. And I'm like, well, yeah, I'm not going to ever make it just for you. It's for the whole department.
Yeah, it's what works for the majority.
Yeah. Yeah. So it sounds, so Amanda, just tell me if I'm on the right track here, but if Michelle and I were able to work through some of that, a lot of that again sounds like communication and even just for Michelle to have self-awareness and be able to manage what she's aware of about herself and that in those moments of high pressure, lots of timeline and deadlines coming up, being able to be aware, oh, I'm going into that task mode, this person needs to be heard, or figuring those, like you said, tools and opportunities out, that would be a real win. And I think buried in there too, for you guys, is that not all of the work is on y'all's side. It's also helping to educate and train your team and set expectations with them on and coming collectively, having them own some of that, and asking them to how they think it should go, what would be helpful. And again, you said it, Amanda, you can't give them everything they ask for, but when you can give them a few small wins out of that feedback, that matters. Hey guys, we can't do all of this, but here's the thing. So I think being able to identify what those are and to make a meaningful impact for them and getting them to come alongside you guys as partnering with you guys as you lead could be a win too, which starts with how you guys go forward with them. So yeah, we could definitely focus on that. Okay, well, I know I don't want to keep you long. Anything else that you feel like would be helpful, or anything that you're concerned about or you want me to know?
Do you know how to mix formula?
No, but I'd love to learn.
Come on over.
Oh,
We'll teach you.
I know. Gosh.
I know Gino, if he gets all his stuff in, he's supposed to start next week.
Great.
He hasn't been able to get in all his paperwork. He's a new formula tech.
Okay.
So
Fingers crossed.
Fingers crossed.
Okay, well, Amanda, you please know you have a way to reach me, and if there's anything along the way that you think would be helpful or you're concerned about, please reach out. Michelle, please do touch base with Amanda and keep her posted on what we're working on. And Amanda, like I said, you can expect to hear from me with kind of when Michelle and I have landed. It'll be a couple weeks from now that we'll have a development plan put together. And you can expect to see that from us so that you can kind of take a look at it and make any edits or changes. But I really thank you for the opportunity and the space to get to work with Michelle. And I consider
thank you. And I'm sorry about the delays. It's been a fun week.
Yeah. Well, as somebody in leadership myself, I totally understand. So no worries. We'll be flexible. So
okay.
Okay. Thank you both.
Thank
the rest
you.
of your day goes a little more smoothly.
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you.
Bye, y'all. Thank you so
Bye.
much.
Bye.